The summer 2021 anime season has come to a close, and with it, I am here to give my top 5 shows of the summer 2021 anime season. I definitely welcome everybody to go down below in the comments and let me know what your favorite 5 shows are of the season. It's not necessarily to say that mine are better than yours, it's just really give people an idea of shows they may have missed that they might want to go back and check out. So again, after completing 23 shows of the summer 2021 anime season, these are my top 5 shows of the season in no particular order. For my first show I have is Remain. Now, if you asked me if I wanted a water polo show, I probably would say no. But after watching Remain, I was definitely sold on this story. And it's not so much that it's because it's a sports show, because I don't necessarily like sports itself. It's really more the fact that the show is more about the characters than the sport itself. To give you an idea, it takes about 4 episodes before you even play a game. It follows a guy that, unfortunately, after having an accident with his family, he ends up in a coma for about 6 months. And after waking up from this coma, he ends up finding that the entirety of his junior high school years, which was when he was actually playing water polo and went to the nationals, he has completely forgotten about. And of course, this is a tragic thing for many people around him, as they knew that he was a very good water polo player. He was very passionate about it, and obviously he was very successful at it. But now going forward, he's obviously re-picking up his life and moving on with things, as he kind of decides if he wants to return to water polo or not. But after he finds out that he made a bet when he had actually won the nationals, he decided that he would continue on doing water polo, and it's all about him rediscovering that love for the sport. But not only that, but obviously about the people around him, the effects of the accident and what it has on his mother, because she was the one that was driving the car when they got in the accident, and possibly those around him that may or may not want him to get back into water polo based on the experiences they had with him in that segment of time that he's actually forgotten. And as it gets more and more into that aspect, it starts to actually get a lot more heavy. I wouldn't say necessarily dark, but it does definitely get heavy. The drama and everything surrounding those years that he's lost is definitely a lot of intrigue in the story in the later parts, and it's stuff that I actually found very interesting. Even though at times you start to hate certain characters, it was for a good reason, and the story that it tells with that still was really, really great. So I definitely tell people, don't judge this by the book's cover. This is definitely a story that does a lot more interesting things than just a bunch of pretty boys playing water polo. Moving on, we go into the case study of Vanitas. This is a series that is going to have a continuation in January of 2022, and so far I absolutely love this series. It's a culmination of multiple things, including a great art style, very much so a Paris type setting, really kind of dark and gloomy, with some really fantastic characters. It essentially is in a world where there is vampires alongside humans, but the vampires themselves aren't really supposed to go out and drink blood. It's actually frowned upon because there's kind of this peace treaty between the humans and the vampires that must be kept. But even still, these things called curse bearers are showing up, which is basically vampires that are giving in to their instincts to suck blood and kill humans. And at the same time, there's this backstory about this particular vampire named Vanitas, who essentially was outcast by the vampires and wanted to curse them in the future. And he had this grimoire that had the power to corrupt vampires' names and thus making them into curse bearers. We'll jump forward to the current time. There's now a human that's running around with the name of Vanitas carrying this book, but he's not seeking to harm the vampires, he's seeking to help them, and by helping them he uses this grimoire to essentially fix their names and thus make them no longer a curse bearer. And joining him is Noe, who is a vampire that is supposed to be kind of observing this book because he was told to by his master. And so the two of them kind of go around, try to solve cases with curse bearers, and at the same time you get this really fantastic chemistry between the two of them, as they are constantly at odds with each other and deciding what they do and how they solve certain problems. And it's that chemistry that really sets this show apart from anything else. I equate it to kind of like those buddy cop dramas where you have this constant at odds about how one wants to handle a situation and how the other one thinks it's wrong and they should handle this other situation. And that constant bickering back and forth was the driving force that I just absolutely loved about this series. Plus, added into it, really fantastic music, great animation, and like I said, really awesome themes and backgrounds and visuals that really set it aside from anything else. Moving on to the most obvious of all these in the list is Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid S. Yes, I am absolutely thrilled that this had a second season, and I ate up every single bit of it. Now, I will say it's very interesting in the idea that this season itself wasn't so focused on comedy like the first season was, but more so on heart and backstory about the characters themselves. These characters we've fallen in love with in the first season are now really getting fleshed out, and we're getting a more pure picture of them as characters and how they fit into the world of the humans itself. Getting into a lot of the aspects of the other world where the dragons came from, getting insights into their history and what kind of molded them into what they are now. these little aspects of Kobayashi dealing with certain ideas such as not feeling cute enough and wondering why Toru loves her so much. All those things kind of sprinkled throughout the entire series, including these perspectives into characters like Elma and her relationship with Toru. So yeah, still having some of that comedy in there, but just having so much heart, so many heartwarming moments, and so many great insights into the characters themselves. And the elements of the dragons kind of finding themselves adopting aspects of humans in order to live alongside them. All these elements were very interesting, and like I said, just giving us more of these great, fantastic characters that we love so much. And then these incredible animation pieces, obviously, because Kyoto Animation just loves to show off every now and then. And by the way, welcome back, Kyoto Animation, and quite a fantastic series to come back with. My next one I have is a little bit more controversial, and that's the Eden Deity's No Only Piece. Now, granted, thank you everybody that watched my review video and actually give me a thumbs up on that one. I figured that was going to be something that would probably kind of rub people the wrong way, because I think this is a series that, with the original creator, has zero filters. It's a series that really does get into very nasty things, but it's nasty things that are in this world that make it difficult to live in, and likes to really play around in these moral conundrums that these characters are constantly facing. It essentially is a world where the thoughts and prayers of humankind, or anything with thoughts, can actually manifest these things called Edens. And these Edens are kind of seen as deities. They're seen as gods of this world. And at some point, mankind was being pretty much taken out by tons of demons, and so tons of Edens showed up, and they all basically sacrificed themselves in order to seal away the demons. Well, unfortunately, skip forward 800 years, demons are starting to show up again, but they're not noticeable because they're actually taking the form of humans and living amongst the humans. And they're actually seeking conquest to take over the world as they figure out ways in order to procreate. And at the same time, the Edens aren't really noticing this because obviously they're taking the form of humans, but some of the Edens are actually figuring this out, and they're trying to find out exactly who the demons are so they can take them out separately. And getting into the aspect of the Edens, their moral conundrums, how they view things like unlike humans do, getting into the demons themselves and the horrific things that they do that obviously you don't want done. And getting to this point later on in the series where you really don't know who you're rooting for because it doesn't seem like any side matches the moral conundrum that we personally would face is really, really fascinating. That willingness for the writer to really get into really dark stuff for a purpose was exactly why I fell in love with it. But at the same time, I will put the huge warning in. Most people will probably be very off-put by those aspects being in the story. Then there's also the conundrum that, honestly, I don't know that this series will ever get a sequel. It leaves on a really bad point, but it was a fantastic journey, and I loved every single bit of it. There's certain characters in that story, a very fantastic villain in the story that I really wanted more of, and I hope it gets something else, but it was a fantastic series. It looked great. It was visually beautiful, vivid colors done by MAPPA, fantastic animation. It was a fantastic ride all the way through, and I love it to death. And for my last show I'll get into is Kageki Shoujo. This is a series that definitely exceeded my expectation. I wanted this show so much because it is technically getting to revue. It's getting into all-female stage play in a way that was more informative than things like Revue Starlight, which was more fantastical. This is very much a solid, strong, slice-of-life drama show that really gets into the characters themselves, these girls that actually go to a school to learn Revue, and all the struggles they face. Struggles that come from things such as expectations, body shape, failures to make tryouts, the effects that all those things kind of have on them, the competition for positions in the Revue itself. All these things come into play and weigh heavily on the characters themselves, and seeing how they grow and mature based on those struggles is where this show shines. I found every single episode as it got into all these different characters of this certain class was really intriguing. My heart broke for them. I cheered for them. I wanted them to succeed. And I think that's a solid sign of a show that has great characters and great storytelling, that I was so invested in the shows. It's one of those shows that's very rare shows that where I'm like, if this doesn't get a sequel, I'm probably getting the source material because I loved it that much. It was just a fantastic show. It had so much heart, had so many great characters that I begged for each episode every single week, up until the point where, sadly, it had to come to a conclusion, and I'm heartbroken. I want more so badly, but it's a fantastic series, and I definitely suggest people checking it out. And that's it. That's my 5 shows, my top 5 shows of the summer 2021 anime season. As I said before, please let me know down in the comments what your favorite shows are of the season. Maybe there's something that I missed. Maybe you love something a lot more than I did. That's fantastic. I love hearing from you guys. There was one other show that I wanted to put on the list, which is To Your Eternity. Unfortunately, the segment of the story that was in this particular season was the storyline that I felt like was the most lacking of the entire thing. I still think it's a fantastic series, and I'm definitely excited for the next season coming up next year. But like I said, this particular season of To Your Eternity wasn't the strongest, but definitely looking forward to more. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like down below. Comment again. Let me know what your top 5 is and what you think of the 5 that I have. Are you going to check any of them out? Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video if you can. Support us on Patreon if you can. We definitely appreciate everybody that does. And y'all take care.